Hello, welcome back to part 2 of the Zine layout for Affinity Publisher. You can see that we've got the same document that we had in the last part, and I've just separated out some text here. I'm going to show you next about bullets and numbering, and also we'll look at tables and image placement, exporting and creating a table of contents from our heading styles. So the first bit is we'll just look at the bullets and numbering. So once you've separated out the different parts of the text that you want bulleted, you'll see there's a standard bullet 1, and you can just click that and it will make them all bulleted. If you scroll down, there's also some numbered ones as well. So jump back to bullets. You'll see that it's a different font size and such, so we're just going to go back and base it on the body style, so you can see it then picks up our standard body style. We could play about with the spacing. They're quite far apart really, so it's just paragraph spacing here. So space before, we could change that if we wanted to. Space after, we just want to reduce that slightly. Probably something like that. Now, there's another control here, space between same styles. So if you've got I think you need to actually switch that on there. So we'll switch that on there. Right, okay. So space after is the space after that style. So then it's the space between the next different style. But you've got this space between the same styles here. So this would then control in between bulleted items that are the same text style. So we'll probably just make those changes. We could go to bullets and numbering. We could even change. You can see here it's got a little bullet and then a tab character. So we could just change that little bullet if we select it, and we'll go for a triangle. You can actually click more and go to different fonts and like wingdings, webdings, things like that, and use very specific characters. If you've got a really unusual font that you've got that's got some really cool characters in, you can just use those as well. You've got a bit of control here over the kind of first line indent of the bullet, but you can also go to your paragraph here and change some of this anyway. So that pretty much gives us the kind of basics that we need. You can also apply things like initial words. So you could have, if it's a bulleted list that has like a colon after the first couple of words, you could make it so those are always bolded. So it just makes your bulleted list a little bit more interesting. So you can see there we've got bullet 1. Let's just change that to numbered list. We'll right click, go to edit, and then base this on the body style again. And again, we might want to change the spacings. So we'll tick that, and then we'll have it maybe as a 3. I think if you want to use another indent, so let's say you've got a numbered list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but number 2 has got a 2A and a 2B. Let's say these are 2A and 2B. You could make this, we could right click on that and change the bullets and numbering so that it becomes the 2A, 2B. We can get rid of the number, so if we just did that, got rid of the dot. And it's behaving a little bit strangely, but let's just increase that to 0.5. Well, 0.4 would be enough. 0.5. You can play about with the positioning of it, although because we're picking up on from different styles, it does make it slightly trickier. So if we went here and said, actually, let's base that on no style, and what's our font here? So we've got Ala 10 point. So we want to make number 2. Ala font size 10 point. Shouldn't have come out the edit there. And we'll change the spacings. Changing numbered 1 there. Edit number 2. 3. Right, so I'm changing this space before here. It's currently set to 0. It's because there is a space in the numbered 1 text style that says after that ends, then we add a nice chunky space. So if I go back to numbered 1 here, and you can see that the space after is 12 point. That's where that 12 points come from. So if I get rid of that to 3. So you can see kind of how playing about with these gives you the things that you need. Providing you've set them all as text styles, you can just go through your text and say, right, I want that as heading 1, I want that as numbered 1, I want that as bullet 1, I want that as bullet 2. So it's pretty simple stuff. You've just got to play about with it, understand what the things in the menus are, and then you can do it pretty easily. Once you've set up those text styles, you're away. Next thing we'll do, we'll add a table of contents into the start of this. So I'm just going to place this on what will be the interior cover. Can go anywhere in the document. It just needs a text frame to start it. So I'll just switch on so I can see the margins. And I'm going to draw a text box here. It's not linked to any of the other text boxes, so we haven't got to worry about text flow and stuff. So once I've got that in place, I just go to text, table of contents, insert table of contents. Now, yours probably won't look like that initially because I have been sort of playing about with the tables of contents, and what actually happens is it creates automatically a new set of text styles very specifically related to the headings that we've already created. So you can see here we've got a TOC1 heading, which is this selected one. What we'll do first, we'll just add a title, table of contents. That's spelt so badly. Okay, and we'll make that heading 1 just so it's consistent. So you can see here this brand new paragraph style for the TOC1 heading 1, which is a brand new text style, is separately editable, and we could make that let's make that bold so that all of these heading 1s stand out as bold. And then TOC heading 2, if we had heading 3s in the document, it would have created a heading 3 TOC style for us as well. and we could, we can make this one italics. Normally what I tend to do is I make the heading 1s bold, the heading 2s regular, and heading 3s italics, and then I just wait and kind of see how I go. There's a little italic tick there. I've never noticed that. I tend to use InDesign more. Right, okay. So one thing is worth mentioning is the dot leaders up into the numbers. And if you go to edit the TOC heading, you'll find that when you insert one on your own, you don't have the dots. So if we just go to the tab stops, you'll find that it's probably set to that for both of the TOC styles. So all you do here is you can just change it so we can have it a dot or a line or a middle line. Quite like the dots. So that's how you switch those on and off. Now, if you change this text frame to 2 column, you should find that it would automatically adjust as well. So that's literally how easy it is to create a TOC, providing you've obeyed the heading styles when you're setting up your document. The TOC is very easy to recreate. Now we've also got a very specific I'll pull this out so we can look at it separately. So you can actually tell it which headings, it pulls the heading styles in automatically. But let's say we wanted, let's say we had a table style, let's say we had a text style, a paragraph style, called table headings. And every time we had a table, we gave it a title, and that had a very specific text style, paragraph style associated with it. We could create a table of contents, which is just all the names of the tables, which would basically be a list of tables. So it's actually very easy to create that. You can have multiple TOCs in a document, but the contents of them are giving you different things. So that's definitely worth investigating. Your TOC doesn't have to just be for headings. It could be a TOC of table names, a TOC of image names if you've got a very specific paragraph style for your image names, whatever. So there's some other things here that we don't really need to worry about for this kind of zine. You could have the numbers start before. Why you want to do that, I have no idea. Okay, so the next thing we want to have a look at is creating some tables, and we've got a table tool up here. I'm going to click it, and I'm going to just drag a random table in. And we've got some control over that. We can stretch it, we can do all sorts of strangeness with it. But it might not be exactly what we want. So if we go to Window and Table, we've got Table and Table Formats. So I'm going to pop that open and pop that one open. Okay. So this just gives us some control over the way it looks. You can see that stroke and fill for very specific cells. If we wanted to do that, we could fill them with yellows. So we can do some very specific things, but those are making one-off changes to the table. And really that's not the best way to do this. So the best way to do this is to create a table format. In the same way that we use paragraph styles to kind of create all of the work of the paragraph in one hit, so that we can just say, right, there's a table, or there's a bunch of text, make it all paragraph 1. We're going to say, here's a table, make it all this kind of table. And you can see in the table formats there's already a default table. So we could apply the default, and that's basically what this table already is. I'm just going to switch these off so they don't interfere with the actual cells of the table. Now, let's say we want to create let's create a new format. Okay, so I think that's this one's the new one. It's just called format 1. So let's edit format 1. Right, this is where the kind of magic of setting the tables up is, and you need to kind of understand how this works so that you're creating your table formats is pretty straightforward. We'll create a relatively standard table with just a heading and then an alternating kind of white and grey or transparent and grey set of body rows. So this here would be our header row, which would be this, and these would be our body rows alternating. But what's important are these little arrows. So if I jump that down, anything above that arrow is going to be classed as a heading, and anything below is going to be classed as body. I could add another row here and jump that up one, and anything under that, so anything under it being a footer row, anything above this one being a header row, and these two become the body rows. And we've got two body rows because we want one formatted a certain way and one formatted a different way because they're alternating. But for the moment we're not going to worry about the footer row. It's just an extra complexity that I don't want, so I'm going to delete that row. Okay, so we're back to this being a header row, these two being body rows, but we're going to set those up slightly differently. And we can select all of this and apply that cell format. So we could add some new cell formats. We want one for the heading row. So we could say, we will select the heading row and say, make it that one. We'll select the first body row, make it that one. And we'll select the next body row and make it that one. So now we've actually told it where in the table what cell formats to apply. So let's just not select anything in there, because if you've got anything selected here like that cell, which it's saying is this format 2 cell star, and I click that, it'll make that one type of cell that format, and it just gets messy. So just deselect it. Okay, so now we're just going to edit this format. So bear in mind this is our header. Okay, so we could give it a name. So in fact, let's give it a name just to make things very clear. So that's our header row. This will be our body row 1, and this will be our body row 2. Okay, so we have to make some decisions. Do we want all of these lines differentiating between cells? I'm jumping back to the header and I'm going to say I don't want that to have any outlines, maybe apart from just the top and the bottom. So we'll also have it as a fill. Right, so the fill will make just slightly grey, and you can see it's actually amending the little info there. So let's say we make that 25. We can also tell it to make the text a very specific text style. Now at the moment we've only got table body. I'm going to click a new one there and I'm going to call it table header. So we'll make that a la 10 point bold. Okay. We'll now jump to this first body row. So the first body row, again, we've got this selected so that it's only using the horizontal rows. Because we've already got a top row for that body row one, a top line for that body row one, I'm just going to say make the bottom one the bottom of the cell have a line, so we don't kind of get lines repeated over themselves multiple times, because it makes it very difficult if you've not built your table correctly and you're trying to figure out where a bit of lines come from. That's the reason for doing it. And we're going to keep that as table body. What I'll probably do in a second, we'll just sort this out. This is going to be my alternating row, so it's going to be identical pretty much, except I'm going to fill just a little 10. Let's make it 10. Could give it some opacity as well so you can see the texture through it. Something like that. Okay. Now if I select this table and I apply format 1, you'll see it's, hopefully that's bold, that's normal, that's normal. So it's doing what we wanted. But now we've got some text in there, let's go in and refine it a little bit. So I don't like the way that everything's pretty much right up against the line, so we can do some stuff with the insets. So if we just have a look here at this header row that we've got, I want to make sure that's all padlocked together, and then we'll just bring that in a little bit more, align it in the center of the row height, and then we'll come in and we'll do the same with these as well. Okay, so I'm just going to play about with these the outlines around the cells in this table style. If the GUI, it's not very intuitive here, but as long as you kind of understand how it works, then we're okay. So I've got my table selected, just make sure it's applied. There we go, and then let's just edit format 1, which is the name of this table style. So at the moment we've got the header cell format selected. So if we just click the other ones, you can see that we've got our grey fill there for the header row, we've got no fill there for the first body row, and then the alternate body row has got this grey fill. But also it's got some outlines assigned to the styles of the cells. So we're going to select this text header, and the key thing to remember about this is that if these are not kind of you just click it and that's what you get for that style. This is basically telling you that you can have for the outside of all of the headers, you could have something that's a thicker line and red, and then the inside you could have a thinner line and white. So to make sure that you don't have any lines selected, you just want to go into these and make sure that for everything we've got no color selected. So I'm just making sure they're all transparent. Okay, so everything on there now looks to be right to me. We do the same with this one. We don't want anything for the moment. Let's just get rid of everything, make it all transparent. Then jump to this one. Okay. Just double checking. Seems like we're picking something up on this style with these. So I'm just double checking them all. Make sure there's nothing assigned. That seems to be okay. Let's just apply it, make sure it's right. Okay, very strange. Let's select the whole table. Let me just check there's nothing here on these strokes and fills overriding it. I think we've got some stuff going on here. Okay. Very strange that we've got something picking up there. It's picking up there, but it's not right. Okay. There we go. Got rid of it. So yeah, that can be a little bit annoying. Okay, so we've kind of cleared all of the things away from cleared all the lines and the outlines away from the cell formats. So I'm just going to go back in now and I'm going to select the ones that I want. So this header row, I want top and bottom quite thick lines. So I'm just going to go back to this top and bottom, make this black, click OK. And you should see now I've got top and bottom lines. And then we'll just edit this, and on this one we'll just set the bottom line to be black but not quite as thick. We'll maybe make it a 0.25. Just took a little while for that to take there, and we're going to do the same with this one. 0.25. Click OK. So there you go. That's done exactly what I wanted to. Okay, so you've got a little bit more control over the table as well. If you double click into a cell, you can drag the columns. You can click and drag down for more rows. One thing you can't do is you can't kind of link, you can't split a table across two pages and have the information flow. So you'd basically have to create two separate tables. So the one thing that InDesign does is if you do split a table, it continues the header rows across, which unfortunately this doesn't do, to my knowledge. One thing I could do here is if I move this over to this page, let's just switch on the margins so I'm getting everything in the right place. I could go to text wrap, show text wrap outline settings, and we could just jump that, and you can see now that it's preserved the table. If I move the table, you can see it's still letting me have control. So if I wanted another table that was related, I could just copy it and then repopulate the data, copy and paste it from wherever. So one last thing to add about tables is you could make you could make it a 2-header table. So you just drop that arrow on the settings in the table formatting. You just drop that down to there, and then you could have 2 heading rows. The one advantage then is in the top heading row, you could have the title of the table. You could make that a separate paragraph style, and then you could build a TOC based on that. So every time you create a table and you put a little title in, you've got the ability then to be able to create a list of tables in your document. So the next thing, kind of related to the tables where I was doing the text wrapping, is the insertion of images. So let's say that I've got an image, and I'm just going to drag and drop it into here. It's just a photo of some sky I took ages ago. Just going to drag it down as much as I need it. Obviously, if I've got all my snap settings on, switch these on, I can make sure that there's a bit of bad alignment going on there, isn't there, Glynn? There we go. So I can stretch that all the way to there, and then I just select it, text wrap, show the settings, maybe do that, give it a jump, move the text away from it, just lock all those together, and you can space your text away from images as you need to. You could even add a nice little stroke around all of your images if you so desired. Okay, now some good layout tips are, if we're just going to delete that, if I have an image of like a shape, so let's say I'm going to use this shield, and I want to stick it there and have all the text wrap around it. There's some considerations that you need to make before you get the image and drop it in. The image has to be has to have a transparent outside, ideally, because you're going to wrap to the wrap in the alpha layer of the object. So this particular object, it's a PNG. A TIFF file will work well as well, and the outside of it is transparent. In fact, let me see if I can find another image. Okay, so here's another image, a little bit big for the moment. So you can see the image is just a black and white image, but the outside of it is transparent. And that's the key to wrapping text around an object that's not rectangular, square. We're just going to go to the text wrap settings again, and we're going to do a tight wrap. Now you can see it's right up against the edge. So making sure that we've got the edges locked, we're just going to move that away. That might not always be perfect. You might just want to play about with it. Maybe you decide that you don't want this as 2 column and you're just going to have it over to the edge somewhere, maybe there. But you can see all of a sudden all of these things that are little tips on how to use stuff is starting to be able to allow you to create a document that is the document that you want, rather than the document that is limited by your ability to use the program. And these things are just really useful to learn going forward if you're creating your own things. So the final thing that we'll discuss now is exporting the file, and we'll export the file in such a way that Mixam would want it, for example. So obviously we've got half a document here, but you'll have a full document. Let's go to File, Export. Okay, so pre-flight. Pre-flight is something that tells you if there's any issues with your file that you're going to export. Let's open it. Let's have a look. Holy moly, like 1 billion spelling mistakes. It's saying something's non-proportionally scaled. If you remember part 1, the background, I sort of shrunk the width of it and I said, oh, you know, that's not proportional. So it's pulling that up. It doesn't really need to be fixed. Lots of spelling mistakes. Clearly doesn't understand Latin. You can actually go into here, edit the profile and tell it to disable spelling errors. Okay. So we're now left with 4 checks. The proportional scaling, which we know about, I'm not bothered. It won't affect anything. The other thing is we have some overflowing text in a frame. This is really useful to know. If you've got a lot of frames that you added some text in later and it just drops a sentence or some words out of the text frame, you want to know. So I'm going to double click it, and it's showing me that I've got some there going on. Where are my page numbers? Who's moved my page numbers? Okay. So why are my page numbers not showing there? Ah, interesting. You'll see when I drop the table down. Okay. This is why pre-flight's very useful. When I drop the tables in here, I set text wrapping. I also set it all the way around it. So there's text wrapping on the bottom of the table that's kicking the page number out of the text frame below it. So I can easily fix that and go to text wrap, change the settings, switch this lock edges off and change the bottom one to 0. Oh, page numbers come back. Same again. Page numbers come back. You'll see also on the pre-flight, because it's set to live, those two have disappeared. We've got some overflowing text in this frame here because we didn't create another one there. There you go. So the only thing that we're worried about now is the proportional scaling, which I'm going to ignore and continue when I do an export. Let's just save that. File, export. It hasn't come up with the warning this time because it's just a note warning. It's not a red, oh, we've got a problem with the document. So PDF is what you want. I've made some custom ones here, and if we go to PDF for print, when you're exporting, you want to export pages, don't export spreads, because Mixam and DriveThru won't like that much. I'm going to drop a link into the notes below, which is for DriveThruRPG's information on setting up print files. And that's useful because it tells you about the PDF formats. For print, I'm just looking at the DriveThru recommended information. It's PDFX 1A. So compatibility, we want this one here. The ICC profile. Okay, so this is something to bear in mind for print products. They're all CMYK, which is cyan, magenta, yellow and black. They don't use RGB colours. Now, each measure of ink, whether it's cyan, magenta, yellow or black, is 0 to 100%. If you've got cyan, 100% cyan, 100% magenta, 100% yellow, 100% black, you've got 400% ink coverage. That's going to be some very, very soggy paper. And also the printers won't print it. So some printers recommend that you try and limit it to about 240%, built up however you like. And what can help with that is the print profiles. The ICC profile will basically limit and shift the colours about in your document to try and limit the amount of ink to the maximum, say 240%. Different profiles have different ink limits. I think the US web coated swap 2, this one here, I think that's 300%. You could use that. Mixam, I think, will be fine with that as well. It can depend on paper quality. If you've got like a really thin, like 70 GSM paper, to like avoid it like the plague. But if you go to the link that I'm going to put in the web notes for the DriveThru page, it gives you a link to download what's called the CGAT S21_CRPC1 color profile. You'll see that I've got it there. That limits your ink to 240%, which means if you use this going forward, DriveThruRPG files will be fine. You won't have any ink limit issues. So we want to include bleed because we've got that background texture bleeding off the page. There could be some other art that's bleeding off the page as well. JPEG compression, yeah, why not? Now include the printer marks. So I tend to do, you don't need to do this for DriveThruRPG stuff, but you do really want to do it for Mixam. And this is basically adding registration marks and the color information as well, but also these little lines here which are your trim edges. So we want those. And once you've set up your profile, you can basically save it so you can always use it again. You could call it Mixam print profile, or if you've got a slightly different one, you could call it DriveThruRPG print profile. Okay. So we're not creating a digital version of this. If I was creating a digital version of this, I wouldn't be using printer marks. I'd be including bookmarks. The PDF compatibility is slightly different as well. But if you go to DriveThru, you can get most of the information from there that you need. I think Mixam's got pretty good technical help on their website as well, so you can look through and check. So I'm going to click export. I've got this set to all pages. Bear in mind as well, when you save the print profile, if you decide to save it, it doesn't remember whether it's all pages and all spreads. I think it defaults to all spreads, which is not what you want. So I'm exporting it to my desktop, and then hopefully it's going to give me a print file. So the cover was blank. There's our TOC, and there is our page 1. And you can see, because in I don't know whether if you've got Adobe PDF full version, under print production, there's things you can check. It's really useful. So the output preview here allows me to see the trim boxes, so I can see those green lines. That's where the paper will get trimmed. It doesn't get trimmed on the inside edges. One other cool little feature of this is as I move the mouse over the screen, I can see the total ink coverage, which is what I was talking about earlier with the cyan, magenta, yellow, black. So I can see that this purple's mainly magenta with a bit of cyan, bit of black, but the black here, there's nothing going over 240%. Unfortunately, this oh, there we go. So I can switch on total ink coverage there, and anything that's more than 200, I can see some of that text is in more than 200. A lot of it's more than 180, but nothing's more than 240. So the color profile did its job. Just going to switch that off. So you can see that's pretty much just ready to drop into Mixam's uploader and order your proof. It's as simple as that. I say as simple as that. It's relatively simple. Okay, I hope all this is useful. If you've got any other questions or you want some videos doing on specific subject, then let me know and I'll see if I can sort that out for you. Okay, cheers. Thank you for watching the video. Please remember to like, subscribe and share the video, and also if you check down in the description for the video, you'll find links to our social media and also places where you can support us by buying our products. Thank you.